Hi, and we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tanya Averth, and I'm moderating with my very good close friend Kim Meldrum. And today we'll be speaking about, well, she'll be speaking about developing literacy through Google Apps for Education. Kim Meldrum is an incredibly passionate educator from Montreal, Canada. She's a former elementary generalist up through high school. She's been an administrator, and she currently works at the Lester B. Pearson School Board as a consultant for technology and innovation. She is the epitome of a true pedagogue, and I have had the privilege of working with her for the last few years, and I consider her a very close friend. She's a Google certified trainer, and she's here today to blow your minds about literacy and Google Apps. So I'll let her take it away.
Thank you, Tanya. That was very kind of you. It's a great pleasure to be here. And as Tanya's alluded to, I've been in the field of education for a very long time. And I have to say that Google Apps for Education has really regenerated my passion for teaching and learning, and particularly in the area of developing literacy skills with our students, whether they're 3 years old or 16-year-old. We all know that literacy is a huge ticket to future success. So I know some of us listened to LeVar Burton yesterday on the Friday session, and he certainly is a great advocate for literacy and did talk about some of the things that I'm going to share with you today. So really, I think what's most important as I go through my session is that I encourage you to think about your teaching practices, and really I hope that through the suggestions that I provide you, that you're able to take one back to your classroom, and really I think that you could take it back Monday or Tuesday and give it a try. So during this session, I'm going to start with some early literacy skill suggestions, and then I'm going to move on into some suggestions that really will work for our students in secondary as well. So I'm going to be switching from myself to screen sharing some slides. So I'm going to do that right now. So just one moment, please. So really, when we talk about Google Apps for Education and we talk about integrating technology as a tool for learning, it's really wonderful to recognize that it allows all of our students to learn and to demonstrate their learning in different ways. If we think about the students whom we've had who really have challenges in terms of sharing their knowledge, because they may have some difficulties in written language, they may have some difficulties writing, technology allows us to provide our students with opportunities to share in many different ways. So as I go through this session as well, I'd really like you to think about how many ways do your students have to demonstrate and share their learning. And as I said previously, it's my hope that you'll add to your bag of tricks, to your strategies, by picking up an idea throughout this session. So it's really important when I start to look at the 3 factors that help our students become literate citizens. The first is oral language. So our students develop oral language. From oral language, they learn to read, and from reading, they learn to write. I think visiting schools and classrooms, I find that the aspect of oral language is not focused on enough. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how to develop oral language with young students, and then we'll look at how can we take those ideas and transfer them into activities or opportunities for our students who are in high school. So, as I said, oral language is critical for development. So you can see from this little graphic that really what we want our students to be able to do is to explain their thinking, to retell, to share their ideas, to listen, and generally just to talk, to have conversations with us adults, and to have conversations with each other as students and children. So this is a picture of a friend of mine. It's her. Her name is Nina. She's 3 years old, and I've done a little bit of work with Nina, and you're going to see an example of her early literacy development skills in a moment. But I also put this graphic up with question marks all over it because my friend and colleague Tanya, who is the introduced me at the beginning of the session, every time that she drops her daughter off at school, she says to her, Yael, remember to ask lots of questions. And I think questioning is really important. One of the things that we often do as teachers is when our students ask us questions, we rapidly move to answering them, and usually in a short statement or two because we want to move on with what our next step is. So really one of the great things we need to develop is our ability to answer our students' questions through guiding responses, so that we're encouraging them to explore and we're encouraging them to find further answers to their questions. So I'm just going to share with you a little video that I made. This is a video of a student who I'm teaching to read through Dr. Seuss. This is a Google document, and what I've done is he wrote his and family of words on the doc, and then I taught him how to do a screen share. So he's reading for fluency. So I think I had a little technical glitch there.
While Kim is just fixing her technical glitch, I'll speak a little bit towards the literacy and her work with young learners and developing oral language skills. And in the clip that you'll see in just a moment, or not, that she might just discuss, you will see the importance of and how simple it is to use Google Docs with simple tools, without making it complicated in your classroom, to record student thinking and make it available and accessible, and allow them to hear themselves speak through their reading, to get a sense of their fluency, and check their running records to get a sense of where they are in their reading. So really straightforward strategies that perhaps Kim might end up just speaking towards and not showing the video. The joy of being live, and as educators, finding your way back when you're on a Hangout live. Go ahead, Kim.
Thanks, Tanya. Am I back on with you? Yes? Okay. Yes, I'm sorry about that. It really is a little glitch because I'm sharing between the two devices and I'm not sure if it's me or the slideshow that's on. So really, I'll walk you through it and I'll tell you that the links to my presentation will be available, and the example is on my YouTube channel as well. So it's Luca rhyming. So I wanted to just say that what I did was I put Luca on my Chromebook and I had him do a screencast. And what he did was he read his rhyming words from the and family of words, and then he listened back to it, and he deleted it if it wasn't working. Apparently I'm having technical glitches for sure.
That's okay, Kim. I'll share my screen and show your
Am I
slides.
back on?
No, but I'll get your slides on. So continue talking and you can they can see them on mine. Go ahead.
Sorry, Tanya. What did you say?
I said that I can get your slides up. So continue talking and I'll
Thank
get
you.
them up.
Okay. We discussed whether or not that would be the best route, so
So
I think that really is.
go ahead. Keep on
Okay.
talking.
Uh,
I'll get them in a moment.
Tanya's going to go to my slides because we do share them, and that way I don't have to flip back and forth to devices, which clearly is not my technical strength at the moment. So I wanted to talk to you about the fact that I used the tool screencasting with Luca. So what I did, he's 6 years old. I taught Luca how to do the screencast himself. I taught him how to listen to what he recorded, which is him reading. And then I had him delete it if he wasn't happy with the way he was reading. So in this situation, in the example that Tanya is going to show with you in a moment, he had done it 3 or 4 times. And I was in the kitchen, so he wouldn't feel stressed for me sitting there. And when I could see he had done as well as he could, or in fact, I heard it, I went into the dining room and helped him finish. You'll hear at the end how happy he was to have recorded his voice and to be able to listen to himself reading his and family of words, which, by the way, he had written himself. So Tanya, are we good to go?
In just one moment.
Good to have a technical friend with you when you're doing these things.
Okay.
There's a real role for a moderator. Here we go. Thank you, Tanya.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, and I will mute here. And go ahead.
Okay, I think we have another technical glitch.
So, so there you go. Kim, we just showed a bit of Luca fishing. So if you want to go over a bit what he was doing and what you were doing with him.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. So what I was doing in that situation was I had Luca for the first time use Google Draw. The reason I wanted him to use Google Draw is I want to show the educators that children need an opportunity to tell their story. And in this case, we were, as you could see, we were going fishing. So I wanted Luca to be able to draw using the tool available, and then to do a screencast to retell why he did his drawing and how he did it. So it was the first time that he had used Google Draw, and it was the second time he had done a screencast. But you can see that in order for him to retrieve some of his stories and his what he's saying, I'm sorry, I'm having serious glitches here.
So Kim, just click on my screen where you would see the slide so that it's showing up when you're you're broadcasting. So just click on that screen on the little screen, so it's going to show up on your
So,
as the big screen, and you'll be fine.
okay, so what I'm looking at, Tanya, is a slide of Screencastify.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. And I do apologize, viewers. So I showed him how to use Screencastify. So really what this is talking about is we need to have our students to be able to tell their stories in ways that they might not otherwise have been capable of doing. So we often ask our students to draw a picture, or we ask them to write their story, or as a teacher, we scribe it for them. The great thing about doing it on a Google Doc or Google Draw and then doing a screencast is you can share it with the parents right away. So for example, in the two examples that I tried to show you with Luca, we were able to share those with his mom. We popped off an email to her and she was able to see what he was doing. So often when I talk to elementary teachers, I talk to them about the fact that too often parents call or send emails and say, look, you know, I asked my child what they did at school today and they always say we did nothing. So think about the powerful dinner conversation that can occur if you pop home a screencast of their child telling a story and doing some reading. Tanya, could you change the slide, please? So this is just a little graphic to reinforce what I'm talking about, and that's really using Google Draw and Screencastify, which is one of the apps available. You're really developing oral language. And we use this with older students as well, which I'll show you as we continue. So another idea that I think is really great is to look at Google Maps. And you can use Google Maps in many different ways. Tanya's going to click on the link on the next slide, which takes us to an example of how someone created a Google map by having contributors pin and add links to those pins.
Kim?
Yes.
I think that it would be best to I'll share that link in the questions, just so that we stay on the same slideshow right now.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'll share that out in just a moment with everybody who's watching.
Okay, so if we just move on, Tanya, we can continue. This is another link that I think you can go to on your own, which is the idea of Lego and building with Chrome. And what I think would be great would be for our students to build with this website and then tell their story. How did they build it? They could also build a castle and do an oral story on something that's happening at a castle. We know that medieval studies and princesses are really popular right now, so this is one great way to do that. Tanya, can we just revert back to me for a moment?
Yeah, just put it on your screen. Just click on your there.
So what I'd like to talk to you about now is really moving on our students. And one of the important things that we're discovering with our students in science and social studies is that literacy really impacts on their learning and their understanding. So it's really important as educators for us to access our students' prior knowledge. And by doing that, both verbally and in written form, we're helping them make connections and we're helping them to think about what they already know and how to build on that in the new context. So there's a number of tools available through Google Apps for Education that really help our student access prior knowledge. One of those tools is to use Google Forms. So you might want to create a form where you're asking your students questions about the topic that they're about to study. So let's say we're looking at Mayan history or Mayan culture. You can create a form where you ask your students a number of questions about what they know about the Mayan culture. Where did it occur? At what time frame? From your Google form as well, depending on their answers, you can actually pop them over to some YouTube videos or tutorials that will help them with their knowledge. So that's really one way to access prior knowledge. Another area that I think is a tool that's really helpful is to use Padlet. So that link will be on the presentation as well. So you'll be able to go to Padlet, and what I like to do with that is pose a question to my students. It's an interactive whiteboard, And then when they come into the class, they tell me what information they know or they answer the question. And it's a focus for discussion because we can talk about what each child shared and what they knew. So it's the ability to really share their learning and their prior knowledge, both in the written form because they're typing on the Padlet, and also to facilitate an oral discussion. So another great tool that's available to you is to create word walls. And I think that's something that both in the elementary and the secondary level we need to do more of because it's building vocabulary. Great tool to do that is through Google Draw. There's also a Chrome app that you can add on called Lucid Chart and Lucid Press that help you. I'm just going to ask Tanya if she would just flip back to the slide presentation to slide number 18. So I can talk to you about a tool that really is extremely powerful to introduce to our students. Tanya?
Yeah, there you go.
Excellent. Thank you. So what you see is a little slide that says developing fluency in written language. What you have in front of you is a screenshot of the tool Read and Write. Now, Read and Write does have a cost to it, but it's only $10 per student per year, and it's free for teachers. What Read and Write does, it allows a student who's doing writing text to have word prediction, to have a dictionary, and also to have a dictionary that involves pictorials. The other thing that you can do, which I think is the most critical piece, is you'll see the little play button. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things you can do with text and with that little play button. So what I have students do is create on a Google document. So let's say they're writing a narrative. They write their narrative using the tools that I had just mentioned before, the dictionary and the word prediction. But then what's most powerful is they play back their text. So they're sitting in the class with their headset on, they're playing back their text, and what they're hearing is whether they had written fluently or not. So for example, many of our children forget to add periods and the story just keeps going on and on and on, and we get exhausted reading it. So that is how Read and Write will read back their text, their narrative to them. So the students are able to realize that they need to go back, they need to edit for punctuation. The other really great feature of having this playback is that if they have typed a word in incorrectly, Read and Write will read it as it's typed. So it allows our students to go back to check for spelling, but not only to check for spelling, but to check for vocabulary. So I've been supporting a school with the one-to-one Chromebook initiative where the grade 7 teacher introduced the students to Read and Write, and she's found that they have improved their written language skills immensely. If for no other reason than the fact that they're feeling more success, the corollary to that is that they're actually writing and they're persisting in their writing. So prior to this, they would quit because it would be a chore for them to edit. And now they're able to self-edit because they're listening back to it. So this sort of reverts back to my initial points where I talked about the importance of oral language.
We have a question from Lauren about
Yes.
Read and Write. She asked, when you say Read and Write has a dictionary with pictorials, does that mean it can provide pictures or students can upload and save their own pictures?
That's an excellent question. And what it does is it provides the picture. So let's say that I was trying to type in the word elephant and I wasn't sure how to spell it. The pictorial dictionary will show the child a picture of an elephant. I would click on that and then the text or the word elephant would populate into their document.
Great. So go ahead, keep on going.
If you just move on to the next slide, one of the next features that I wanted to put up is how Google now has speech recognition. And I really think this is a huge, huge gift to many of our students. Too often, we have students who are extremely clever, who have very deep understanding of content, who have a lot they would like to share with us, but they're not able to share their skills and knowledge because we're asking them to do it in the written form. And this may be an area where they have a learning disability. So the speech recognition, which is an add-on to your Google Doc, takes the speech, so the child simply tells their story, and it's transformed onto a document. So it's a huge tool. I was in a meeting not that long ago where one of the IT consultants had shared that he had gone to a school with a tablet, and the teacher had given it to the student in grade 10. And the student had taken the tablet, gone on to speech recognition, sat in the corner, and actually dictated a 4-page narrative. And she said it was the first time that this child had ever been able to produce 4 pages, and that she was blown away by the content. So I think the power of this very simple tool really speaks for itself in terms of meeting our student needs. Thank you, Tanya. Can you move to the next slide, please?
There you go.
So this is a little screenshot from Google Doc, where what I've done is I've clicked on the editing button, and you'll see what comes up is suggested edits. This is a super tool for helping our students work collaboratively in language and develop their literacy skills. Often we say to our students, okay, you're going to do a project together. And Fred, you're going to do some writing. And Samantha, what I'd like you to do with Fred is to help him with his written language and to do some editing and make some suggestions. So the students go off, they work together, they do their writing, and really, we don't know which student has written, which student has made suggestions, and we also don't know how valuable those suggestions are. So with this feature on a Google Doc, you can have 2 students working collaboratively on a document. Samantha will be contributing to the document through suggested edits. And what this does is make the suggestions right on the document, but the other student has to read those suggestions and they have to decide whether or not they accept them. So this works for student collaboration, but it's also an invaluable tool for teachers. Because if you think about it, you take an assignment home, you correct it, you put a mark on it, you give it back to the child, and all too often, they don't look at the corrections or the suggestions that you've made. As a teacher, if you use suggested edits to correct a student document or a student piece of writing, they actually have to look at your suggestion and they have to decide whether or not they accept your suggestion. And so by looking at it, they're learning about what you're correcting, and you're forcing them to focus on that correction and accept it. So it's a great tool in many ways for our students. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is reading around the text. I think this is really an important skill to teach our students. And so I'm going to show you a very simple feature that actually Tanya showed me recently called Command F. So Tanya, if we could just look at slide 21.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You're on it.
So this is a screenshot. What I did was I went to the web and I wanted to find out about the world population of Africa. So you can see that I searched world population, and this is what the site that came up. And what often happens with our reluctant readers is they don't persevere. So they'll do a search, they'll come up with maybe 10 websites, they'll go to the first one, they'll start to read it, the information they want is not on that website, and so they quit. And so what we want to help our students do is to focus on the aspects of text on that document that is relevant to them. So all you have to do is you open the site, you press Command F on a Mac or Control F on another device, and you'll see where my purple arrow is. This little search bar opens up. So in this case, I wanted to find the population of Africa. Typed in Africa, and you'll see that it shows 1 of 60 hits. So that means on this website, the word Africa is presented 60 times. So if I were the student and I wanted to find out about Africa, then this is a website that I would persist with and I would continue to read. Had my hits come up with maybe 0 of 0 or 1 of 0, I would have closed that tab, gone back to my search, opened another website, and followed the same process. So this is allowing our students to read around all that superfluous text to find out if this website is pertinent to them and if it will help them with the information that. So one of the other things that I think is really important through Google Apps for Education is the fact that there's really rich assessment information available to our students through what they're doing on Google Docs or on slides or even on Google Drawing. And one of the great ways to do that is, Tanya's put the slide up here for you, is to use revision history. So under File, you'll see there's a purple arrow there. It says Revision History. And what happens on the right-hand side is this bar opens up, and you can see that I made a number of edits to my document. If I were to click on what I did at 8:51, I would be able to see what changes I had made, and I could decide whether or not I went back to that document. But the real benefit to revision history is that if I were working collaboratively, I could see what changes I made, and I could see what my partner collaborator had done as well. So think about that from a teacher perspective. Think about those group projects again that we give our students. And then Tanya and I are doing a project together. It's time to hand it in. And I look at Miss Smith and I say, you know what, Miss Smith, Tanya did nothing. She really didn't contribute to my document. Well, I'm able to go into revision history and I'm able to see what did Tanya contribute to the document and what did Kim contribute to the document. So that's one piece. But in terms of an assessment piece, what's even more important is I'm able to see how Kim and Tanya work together. So what content did Kim provide? Was Kim able to create and to write in an appropriate way, or was Tanya's role to go in and do the editing? So it provides me with information on how Kim attempts the task, how she creates, and in what areas I need to focus some intervention or some targeted lessons. And it also shows me the same for Tanya. So revision history is really a rich piece of information for our students. So when we look at literacy development, I'm sort of moving into our last stage of the presentation. It's really talking about making thinking visible. We really want our students to be able to share their knowledge and their learning and to get contributions and ideas from other people. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that our students are creating videos, that they're taking screenshots, they have the ability to take photographs and upload them. And we talked about screencasting and what a great tool and strategy that is for our students. So all of those things are extremely important. The other vehicle that I think is really great for our students is for them to be able to use Twitter. I think for our elementary students, sorry, thank you, Tanya. Do you want to just move on to Twitter? We're looking at slide 29. Thank you. So one of the things that I've seen used extremely well in a grade 1 in a kindergarten classroom is a class Twitter account. So we're going to put the link on for you afterwards to a few teachers who use Twitter. But I'm thinking about Madame Galvez, who teaches kindergarten and then looped with her kids to grade 1. She started using Twitter with her kindergarten students. So she had her parents follow the class Twitter account. And what Madame Galvez would do is she would have a student tweet out, well, she would help them, tweet out what they had done, something special that they wanted to share that had happened over the course of the day. So it really brought home the conversation at dinner. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier. When Fred comes home and mom and dad say, "What'd you do at school today?" And they said, "Well, we didn't really do anything." Mom and dad can say, "But hey, look, Madame Galvez tweeted out that you were learning about gravity today. Can you tell me all about it?" And it really engages the student and helps them with their learning and their focus. So you can see we have some links here for you from the connected primary classes that you can take a look at your own leisure and see how they're having their class use Twitter.
Yeah, so there's Linda Yolas, Kathy Cassidy, Karen Lerman, Kristen Wydeen, and Matt Gomez are some great people to have a look at how they're using Twitter and building literacy and making thinking visible using Twitter.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. So one of the other areas that Tanya and I have done a lot of work on is developing digital portfolios. And we really like to recommend that your students have the ability to create content, so in the different ways that I've talked about, and then to share it on a class blog, but also to have that on their digital portfolio. So if you think about the examples that I talked about before with Luca, with his talking about how he went fishing, or with reading his rhyming words, or even an older student doing a screencast and sharing a creation that they've developed, they should be able to put this on their blog or put it on a YouTube channel that's set up by the teacher, because this gives them the chance to share, to get feedback. They may get feedback and go back into what they've created and do some editing and make some changes to it. So teachers are extremely invaluable because we don't develop our literacy skills in a box. We really need to be sharing, and we need to be receiving information and feedback from others. So that's really an important piece. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is developing YouTube playlists for your students. And what's really neat on a YouTube playlist is that your students are able to add to that playlist. So I'm going to share with you later, but I went into a classroom recently where the students were learning how to develop conics projects using Desmos Math on a Google Drive. And I said to one of the students, I said, "Are you learning a lot from this activity?" And they said, "Yes, Miss, I'm really learning a lot." And I said, "Well, would you like to do a little YouTube video where you can talk about your learning?" And by the next day, I received in my Google Drive a student had created a YouTube video where they had talked about how powerful their learning was by creating their conics project through Desmos Math. So I think really we need to think about providing those opportunities for our older students, because not only was she creating using the app Desmos, but she was able to tell her story. She was able to verbalize how it had improved her learning process and how it helped her to develop greater skill. So all of those things really help our students in terms of literacy in many different areas. And I think that we need to think about whether we're using Twitter or we're providing video opportunities for our students. We're allowing them to screencast. We're allowing them to use tools such as read and write, Google Voice to Text, so that they can share their skills with us in ways that they've never been able to before. So Tanya, I'll just ask, because I know time's going here, if there are any questions from our audience.
So we have some nice comments here. Here we go. There's Janice Mel, who said, "I have already spoken about the global university test in Twitter with hashtags so that students can see their answers via hashtag. Very exciting method." So I think that there's some presentations that have also been sort of complementing some of the ideas that you've been speaking about, which is really great. And I'm just going through some of the lists to see, and I'll just stop sharing my screen for a moment. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so I'm just going through some of the questions, and let's see. No, nothing that we haven't already gone over. So I think that um, if you wanted to leave with any anecdotes or anything uh, over the next little while, and if anyone has any questions, I'll definitely chime in. But if you want to do that, then I think that's a good time now.
Okay, so really, I think what I would just like to do is to reiterate a few of the features that I talked about in terms of literacy development. And again, I say this in all of my presentations and probably more times than some people want to hear, but really we need to focus on the development of oral language. And we need to do that not just with our primary students, but with our high school students. I was doing a presentation a couple of weeks ago, differentiated instruction using Google Apps for Education. And I noticed that one of the things I said that was tweeted out most often was when you walk through a high school classroom, what are you hearing? Or a high school, and you go into the classrooms, are you hearing kids having conversations? Is there oral language? And I think that resonated with a number of the high school teachers in the session because, as I said, that's what they tweeted out. So I think if you are high school teachers and you're listening to my presentation, I'd like to ask that when you walk through your school on Monday and Tuesday, you sort of put your ear out and say, okay, am I hearing students talking? Is there conversation? Because we have to remember that reading and writing comes from oral language. And for subject-specific teachers, there's a lot of really difficult concepts and vocabularies that we're learning within history or geography or math, and we need to talk through that language. And so if we can use screencasting, if we can use video recordings, and we can use YouTube videos to help reinforce that learning and to share it, I think that's something that we need to really seriously start looking at in our daily practice. And I say daily practice, I don't mean that you have to create videos or have your students create videos every day, but what I do mean is we have to talk and we have to share vocabulary and we have to share our skills and knowledge orally as well as in the written format.
So we have a few questions, with a few minutes left. Well, and this is a really great one from Valerie Hunsinger, and she asks, "What type of privacy social media permission slip did you have parents sign?" It's a really great question.
That's a really great question. And I think that really depends on your district. I have to tell you, in the district or the school board that I work in, our parents do sign permission slips at the beginning of the year, but the permission slip acknowledges the fact that we don't have any walls. We're completely open. So our teachers are able to use Twitter and YouTube and send out the creations of the students to the wider public. But really, it's a discussion that you have to have at your district, because you can certainly have a Twitter account that is sent out only to parents, so to specific people. You can create YouTube videos and only share the link to certain people. Mine are public, but that's because those parent permission forms have been signed. So just to reiterate, there are lots of choices that you can make in terms of whether or not you're public or private and who sees the student creations, and that's very much a district discussion. And you need to think about that when you put down the specific information on your parent permission forms.
And Kim, just make sure that you're clicked on yourself. One of the last another question that someone has asked was what is an example of a question you might ask a student on the interactive whiteboard?
On the interactive whiteboard, one of the things I would ask them if I'm accessing prior knowledge, so let's say it's something simple like we're starting to study about Mexico. I might ask them, brainstorm or write down 3 things that you know about Mexico. And so the student would be on that whiteboard and it would be up on the screen, and we would see what people know about Mexico. So the question that you ask really is dependent on what information you're trying to glean from your students.
So we're out of time in just a moment. I want to thank you all for coming. and apologize for a bit of the technical glitches. That's the joys of being live on air. So I think we've done a great job, and I think Kim definitely shared some amazing ideas, and definitely check out some of the resources that she'll post right after that are going to be made available. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And again, I concur with Tanya. We work together as a team and hopefully solve some of those glitches. But it's the first time, and if there's another opportunity, hopefully it'll be a bit smoother. Thank you very much.